am Cassandra Wilson, 29 years old, and the moment that would rewrite my life arrived not in the quiet solitude of reflection, but in the cruel spotlight of a celebration twisted into humiliation. My 32nd birthday should have been a night of warmth, of laughter, of the people I loved gathered to honor me, yet instead, it became the stage for my public execution. The restaurant shimmered with golden light, crystal glasses catching reflections of chandeliers above, tables adorned with roses that mocked me with their elegance, and in the center of it all, I sat surrounded by eyes that waited for me to shatter. My mother-in-law leaned forward, her manicured hand sliding a neat stack of papers across the white linen, her voice dripping with venom disguised as humor as she announced, "A gift from all of us." My husband, seated beside me, raised his phone, recording as though my devastation was entertainment for their circle, his silence sharper than any blade. Around us, guests whispered, stifled laughter mixing with the clinking of silverware, the cruelty of the moment wrapping tighter around my chest. Yet instead of breaking, instead of delivering the reaction they thirsted for, I smiled. Calm, deliberate, unshaken. My hand did not tremble as I signed the papers, my pen gliding across the page with finality. Gasps rose like smoke in the air, their anticipation soured into confusion, and without a word, I pushed the papers back toward her. I stood, smoothing my dress as though nothing monumental had just occurred, and I walked out of the restaurant into the cool night, the city lights spilling across the wet pavement like scattered jewels. What they did not know, what no one in that room could have imagined, was that I had already set in motion a storm so vast it would consume them all. Their cruel performance, their orchestrated betrayal, would not be the end of my story, it would be the opening act of theirs. Because betrayal does not destroy me, it fuels me. And as the night air kissed my skin, I whispered to myself that their downfall had already begun. The night swallowed me whole as I stepped away from that glittering cage of cruelty, but within the silence of the darkened streets, my heart no longer trembled. I could still hear their laughter echoing behind me, sharp and cruel like glass shards against my ears. But every step I took away from that restaurant was a step deeper into the plan I had spent months preparing. Betrayal does not arrive overnight. It brews, it festers, it whispers until the truth is undeniable. I had seen the signs long before that evening. My husband's lingering glances at his phone, the way my mother-in-law's false sweetness sharpened whenever she thought I wasn't looking, the hushed conversations that always ceased when I entered a room. I had learned to smile through the pain, to play the obedient daughter-in-law, the loyal wife, while inside me, another Cassandra had begun to awaken. That woman was not fragile. She was not silent. She was fire contained within glass, waiting for the moment to shatter. Months before my birthday, I had begun to trace their lies back to their source. My husband's business deals, his carefully hidden accounts, the whispers of infidelity concealed beneath layers of secrecy, all of it I uncovered in silence. My mother-in-law's network of influence, the scheme she orchestrated to bind the family's name to power and prestige, her debts buried beneath the masks of grandeur, all of it I had already collected like a surgeon preparing instruments for a precise incision. What they mistook for weakness was strategy. What they saw as compliance was calculation. So when I signed those divorce papers, when I stood in that room and smiled in the face of their cruelty, I was not giving in. I was sealing their fate. The storm had already gathered behind me, invisible to their mocking eyes, and soon it would break. Their empire was built on deceit, on manipulation, on the illusion of strength, and I had spent months studying every fracture in its walls. Now, it was time to let the cracks widen until everything they cherished came crashing down. The days following that staged humiliation became the quietest of my life, but silence does not always mean surrender. To them, I had vanished, a discarded woman licking her wounds in solitude, but in reality, I was moving through shadows with precision. I rented a small apartment far from the glittering neighborhoods they paraded through, a place where no one knew my name, where whispers of wealth never touched the air. Within those walls, I built my war room. Every document I had gathered, every photo I had captured, every recorded call was laid out in meticulous order, like soldiers lined for battle. Their arrogance had been their undoing. My husband never suspected the woman he thought he controlled had the intelligence to hack into his secret accounts, to trace wire transfers meant to fund his affairs, to gather proof of crimes buried beneath layers of legal deceit. My mother-in-law, drunk on her belief in dominance, never imagined I had already turned her closest ally against her with nothing more than a carefully placed truth about her hidden debts. Every night, I would sit before the evidence, feeling both fury and calm intertwine, as though two versions of me existed, the Cassandra who had once cried into pillows at night, and the Cassandra who now sharpened her grief into a blade. When dawn arrived, I dressed in composure, sent emails to lawyers, whispered to journalists eager for scandal, and pushed dominoes into place with the gentlest of touches. They thought the divorce had stripped me of everything, but what they failed to grasp was that I had already freed myself from them before they ever cast me aside. In their eagerness to wound me, they had given me the final weapon. No ties, no chains, no obligations to protect their name. Now I could destroy them openly, without hesitation, and with the full force of a woman who had nothing left to lose. The stage was set, and the performance about to begin was mine alone. When the first strike landed, it was subtle enough to make them doubt their own footing. A quiet leak to a trusted journalist revealed inconsistencies in my husband's business filings, numbers that had been buried for years under a mountain of forged signatures and false accounts. Overnight, whispers began circulating in the same circles that once applauded him. His phone buzzed endlessly with calls from investors who no longer saw him as a golden figure, but as a liability waiting to collapse. My mother-in-law, who thrived on perception and power, panicked as articles with her family's name splashed across headlines. I imagined her manicured fingers trembling as she scrolled through every damning line, realizing the fortress she believed unshakable was crumbling from within. But that was only the beginning. I released photographs, strategically timed, of his secret trips with women he claimed never existed. At first, he denied them, desperate to maintain an image of control, but the images were undeniable, the way his hand lingered on their backs, the hotel suites charged under his name, the champagne bottles lined in celebration. And then, as though fate itself aligned with me, the ally I had quietly turned, her most trusted confidant, delivered the final betrayal by providing me documents of her unpaid loans and hidden blackmail schemes. With each revelation, I didn't just dismantle their reputation, I dismantled the very identity they had built upon. The world began to see them not as untouchable elites, but as fragile, desperate frauds. For years, I had been their silence, their shadow, the woman in the background who was told to smile and remain obedient. Now, I was the storm tearing through their carefully crafted lies. And though I should have felt triumph in watching them drown, what I felt most was an eerie calm, as if this was not revenge but justice long delayed. They had chosen the stage on which to humiliate me. Now, I had chosen the fire with which to end them. The night everything came crashing down was eerily silent, almost as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for the reckoning. My husband was served in the middle of his own office, papers delivered by officials who moved with cold efficiency, dragging away boxes of files that no longer belonged to him but to investigators who had been waiting for this moment. His business empire, once paraded as untouchable, was now rotting before his eyes. My mother-in-law, who had built her identity around her son's supposed success, found her name etched in every headline, not as a matriarch of prestige, but as an accomplice to deceit. I watched from a distance, faceless among the crowd, as cameras flashed and microphones shoved forward, capturing their downfall in real time. What they once did to me in private humiliation, I had returned 100-fold under the glare of public shame. And yet, I didn't linger in their ashes. I walked forward, leaving them to choke on the ruin they had authored with their arrogance. My story wasn't about staying in the rubble, it was about rising beyond it. I rebuilt, not with their money or name, but with strength carved from betrayal. Their cruelty had not broken me, it had revealed me. And to you watching, who may be carrying scars hidden under silence, let my journey remind you, sometimes the greatest revenge is not just in destruction, but in becoming untouchable, undeniable, and unstoppable. If you love the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Your support fuels more amazing stories like this, only here on Revenge Book.